What's up, Nick?
What's up? How you doing, Paul?
I'm really well. How about yourself?
I'm really well too, sir.
Nice to see your smiling face.
I'm doing really well.
Is that too fancy?
I'd be like,
I'm
good, bro.
I'm good, bro. Yeah.
I'm doing
ready
well.
to rock. Let's
I've
send
just
it
finished
today.
my tea and I'm ready to record, sir.
That's a good British accent, I think.
Yeah.
Not that I would know, but it sounds good to me.
The other VP at NADCAP, John Brooks, is a British guy, so, you know.
Okay. So
He makes sure that I never feel smart.
You should just talk back to him with an accent when you're trying to get a point
when
across.
he does his American accent, it's the best. Because, like, they think we sound ridiculous, you know.
We don't have an accent. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no one does, right?
That's
so
right.
good.
Well, speaking of business, and not that we brought up family, but we got Charlie Hushek today from Phoenix Heat Treating talking about many generations of family business and going through the fire, which is a very apt name for a heat treating company.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Charlie, welcome.
Yeah,
you guys have
thanks for
such
having
a
me.
really cool story.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of share it with some of the people here. It's going to be great.
Yeah, when you first told us, it was like one of those moments we have all the time where, like, we didn't have the recording button clicked, you know, when we were just first talking through working together on making chips. So we were like, well, we'll just do it again. We'll tell the story. And I have the memory of a goldfish, so I don't remember a lot of the details, and I'm excited to hear it for the first time.
It's going to be great.
And I remember cool things on the walls, which we can't see in your camera, so you'll have to describe them for us.
Yeah.
But let's dig into it. Tell us about the very early origins of this business.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty cool story. I'm a fifth generation heat treater, and I guess that's where we are today. But let's back way up. So the family's been doing this kind of in the original form of heat treat as like blacksmithing, right? Making swords for the Prussian army. When they came, immigrated to the U.S., they opened up what was then Wesley Steel Treating. And so 1910, they grew that from probably the equivalent of a garage or barn, to 4 plants, servicing 2 in Milwaukee, 1 kind of in the cornfields, and 1 in Chicago, doing all sorts of different types of processing. And I think that was really big industrial revolution. There's a lot happening with Ford at that time. And then obviously the World Wars kind of start, and World War II was a big launching pad for the company. And we have some cool memorabilia around here of some of the wartime effort pictures and original kind of renderings from the plants, and it was just pretty amazing. So that's kind of where we started. I guess that was first gen, second gen, and Wesley Steel Treating. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Paul, tell me about your trip to Italy.
I went there with the NTMA, and we got to tour SMW Autoblok, 2 different facilities. Absolutely blew me away. World-class, enormous places. I can't even count how many machines there were, but so much automation. One of the most incredible takeaways for me was the breadth of what they made. I did not know they made so many work holding products and automation products. And I loved watching a big chuck machine a little chuck. So they were machining chucks in huge lathes. I thought that was super fun.
Yeah, you introduced them to me after you came back, and they've been to my shop. And the ideas they have to like breathe new life into some of my machines and the tools and the jobs that we're running was just shocking.
And then one of the coolest things is we're bringing this new automated pallet delivery system, the Hennig workflow, to market. And guess what the interface is? It's SMW 0-point locators. It's really sweet. We're
getting ready to get some of those.
So how do people find SMW Autoblok to look through that massive catalog of products?
It's SMW Autoblok, BLOK.com.
Yeah, get rid of that C. SMW Autoblok, BLOK.com. I'm looking at an image of a German Prussian cavalry officer's sword right now, and imagining
pretty sweet, right?
Is that like late 1800s, or what time frame is that?
1889 is the image I'm looking at right now, and the other one's from 1873. It looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, because you got to think like heat treating's been around for so long, right? It's one of those trades that no one knows anything about, and I think it's so critical, as making parts and making chips, right? It's like if your part doesn't have the strength to hold a house together. It really does you no good. That fastener's not worth a whole lot, or holding satellites or whatever it might be. So, yeah, it's been around. We're kind of, I call it a shadow industry. So we've been hiding in the shadows for a long time. It's there, always there, kind of sometimes forgotten. But yeah, we've been doing it for a long time. So that Wesley Steel Treating closed in the late, let's see, 50s. And so my grandfather kind of saw some of the writing on the wall with the company, and he'd worked there. You know, he's not a degreed engineer. He just learned from the floor up and kind of how operations work and metallurgy and what to do when. And so he moved the family to Phoenix in the late 50s, kind of at the same time as Wesley Steel Treating was kind of winding down. And it's a pretty amazing story where he was like a parcel driver, something like a delivery truck driver, and he was at a machine shop dropping some parts off, and I guess they had a furnace, and he's like, hey, you know, he drops this package off at the clerk and at the will call, and he's like, that's a pretty critical part. And the clerk's like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, no, you're going to want to like go take that to somebody. Like, you've got a furnace down and you need to like fix it right away. I'm sure it's probably pretty critical. And then, of course, like the foreman here overhears this kind of interaction. He's like, who are you? You know, what do you know about this stuff? He's like, oh, well, I was at a big facility heat treating plant. And he's like, oh, well, you should not be driving and dropping parcels off. You need to be working for us. And so that's how he kind of got his first, job in manufacturing here in Arizona. And then that spurred to kind of splitting off and spinning off its own little commercial heat treating, kind of primarily for Mercury Tool and Die, which was the name of the company. And yeah, the rest is history. So Phoenix Heat Treat started in 1963, still at the same address that we're at now, and mostly tool and die and salt pots, and obviously we've grown from there. So my dad took over in '88 as president, and now I'm the president, which is pretty cool. So it's been fun.
That's awesome.
When did you take over?
Yeah, so my story, family business, anyone that's been in it, it's can be a wild ride at times. And so when I got out of school, I'm not an engineer. I'm not, definitely not a material science guy. My dad said, you're going to work on second shift. So we run, 5 shifts here now. You're going to run second shift. You're going to be on second shift, not run it. You're going to be on loading parts, blasting, loading trucks, getting your hands dirty. And I'd spent summers there before, but that was kind of my first full-time interaction. And so I did that for 2 years and moved around, did some customer service, launched an ERP system. And then in 2020, I transitioned into the role of general manager. And that was a really, really tough year. I'm sure we'll want to get into it. But from 2020 to now, and then kind of transitioned recently into the role of presidency. So it's been good. I've learned a lot. I can, still load a truck with a forklift, which I always love, and I'm not afraid to jump in and hand blast some parts if needed to get an order out. And it's been a wild ride. We really turned the business around, and made it one of the cutting edge shops in the Southwest. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I want to get into the 2020, through the fire story, but 5 shifts, huh? You run 5. So how long are your shifts?
That is wild.
Yeah. So we split the business up last year into business units based off of our world is our turn times are like days, right? So optimizing speed is so critical. We just purchased a machine shop and they're telling me lead times are like 12 weeks. And my mind is just like, cannot comprehend how that scale. I'm like, we need to have these parts done in 3 days. And like that does not work. So basically every business unit has kind of their own schedule to meet the kind of demand of the area. So our aluminum and PH, they run 5 shifts. PH Steel's at 17/4, 13/8. So they run for Monday through Thursday, 4/10s, and then they have a 3/12s Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, and a 3/12s Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. So there's a lot going on, and then there's a bunch of other random shifts, so swing shifts.
I mean, most machine shops have trouble managing a second shift, let alone 5.
Yeah,
that must take incredible logistics and even the culture and just the team and the process and everything to
it's been
that
wild.
work.
It's been a crazy experience, And I think to tell how we got to that point of managing the 5, it might make sense to go back to 2020 or that through the fire. And, so at that time, we do a lot of regulated work. So a lot of aerospace, really heavy in defense, semiconductor stuff.
What percentage would you say would be like regulated work of your total business?
So, stuff that's like NADCAP, which kind of is the governing, certification, I guess, for aerospace heat treating is probably going to be 70%. Now that's spread across a ton of different primes. I mean, anybody that's, making the news, we're somewhere in their supply chain. Some we do work for directly. So, to give you an idea, there's 50 plus furnaces here. We have last I checked, there was 14,000 saved unique part numbers in the system, our ERP system. It's a wild beast, 500 open orders at any given time. So that's kind of the lay of the land. And then in 2020, obviously everyone's dealing with COVID, right? Can't believe that was 5 years ago. And so we were dealing with that and the uncertainty and trying to figure out what that was. But then we had our own internal challenges to just kind of pile on. And so unfortunately, we lost our NADCAP cert. So again, 70% of your business is kind of tied to that certification. And it wasn't the fact that we were putting out necessarily, product that was going to fail in the field. It was mostly the paperwork. These T's weren't fully crossed. The I's weren't fully dotted. Calibration for oil quench tank might have gone to 6 months and a week instead of every 6 months. And so enough of those kind of death by 1,000 cuts, if you will. And that really, I think, was a function of hadn't really thought in the system mindset. It was kind of 4 or 5 people that were really holding up really all the balls of the business, trying to maneuver and make it all work. And so that was a sobering moment. I'm 26 at that time, and I had to, make notice that we had lost our NADCAP, and the phone just would not. I mean, for hours was just people canceling orders and the work just evaporating. And so that was challenging. That was in February. And then obviously COVID happened right after that. So it was just like this weird, mid-March. So you go through the process of getting your NADCAP back, and we did that. And so kind of things were kind of stabilizing. COVID was, obviously still around. We're still kind of trying to navigate that piece of it. And then our GM actually got COVID, and great guy, great operations guy, and he unfortunately passed away as a result from complications of COVID. And so now we don't have kind of the leadership. My dad's a very technical person, and an amazing metallurgist and 40 years of on the floor blending theory with practical hands-on experience. And so without kind of the GM to balance kind of the people piece, someone needed to kind of jump in. So I kind of just took over that role because someone needed to, and I've tended to kind of go through the fire, if you will, like kind of talking about. And so that was a really challenging, obviously period. Now you have the emotional impact of losing NADCAP, getting it back, COVID's happening, uncertainty, GM passing away, uncertainty. And on the same day the GM passed away, we actually had a small furnace fire within like 3 hours. It was just the craziest day, and it was wild. And so, luckily there was no loss. Everyone was okay. Obviously that's your first, desire is make sure everyone's okay, and then you worry about the building, and the building was okay. And so furnace we ended up getting rid of. But it was really kind of one of those moments where you're like, holy cow, this is crazy. And you kind of have to build up from there, right? So we got our NADCAP back, and we're trying to stabilize the boat, and then a prime contractor, so someone that was in the news making aerospace parts, is doing a on-site reevaluation audit. They saw some things that they, were kind of puzzled by. Obviously, we had our cert back in hand, and we're feel confident that the system's strong, and we're again putting out good parts. And this individual had some concerns, and so he wrote a letter to NADCAP, and they suspended our cert again. So again, we had to go through this whole process.
So you're in NADCAP timeout again?
Yeah, we're in NADCAP timeout for that time. It was a suspension, but you still can't process aerospace hardware. So here we go, the whole process, all the primes, figuring out what's going on. You got this blemish on your record, and so that was kind of one of the low points. We're like, oh my gosh, man, like how are we gonna come back from this? And I think a lot of people thought we weren't gonna come back. If I'm being honest, twice in a matter of 6 months is not an easy thing to come back from.
Well, and you mentioned systems a couple times. The word systems has come up, and thinking in systems. And the initial system feels like, from your story, like what was the guy's name? Greg, the gentleman who passed away?
Stacy. Yeah, Stacy was our general manager.
Oh, Stacy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Way different than Greg. I don't know how I got that. But so Stacy passes away, and the system was in Stacy's head primarily, right?
And we had,
because your dad was the more scientist and like more technical part, but as far as how everything runs through the company, it was pretty much in that person's mind.
And it had worked, right? Like the system, we were putting out good parts. We had a strong quality system. Parts were flowing and it was working. We didn't have issues in the field, but it wasn't scalable. And so we'd get really some success, and then we'd get a bunch of influx of orders, and then those balls would start to drop. And it was kind of this teeter-totter, you're going one side or the other. And so when we lost had our cert suspended the second time, that was kind of the moment where we went, okay, what we've been doing is just not working. So we were fortunate enough to hire some really great folks on a consulting basis. And I rewrote the entire QMS system with them in 6 weeks in time for a second audit. We basically just ripped everything up and started from fresh, and really leveraged our ERP system to automate and streamline and build systems that were, bulletproof, where those little details that are in heat treat. Since we bought the machine shop, I've learned so much about these things. It's like there's so many little minute details in heat treat that I don't think people really understand. Furnaces have to be calibrated to 1/10 of a degree every week, every month, every
1/10
quarter.
of a degree?
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you know
crazy.
that, Paul?
That's tighter than I was. No, I would not have expected that.
Yeah. So we have to report per 2750 in tenths of degrees. There's ramp rates we have to do. We have to run decarb samples. We have to do oil testing. We have to quench tests on oil. So it's like this whole world of those are the little things that can trip you up when you're trying to run massive volumes of work. So, and then from there, it was just the climb out, right? And you kind of hit that point where you go, okay, what got us to this point has worked, and we need to honor and respect that. We had a lot of tribal knowledge in the system, and let's figure out how we can grow and put things in systems where we can scale and kind of start clawing our way out. And so that's what we did. And then one thing led to the next, and we've had, revamped the culture, and, we have a really vibrant culture I think people are really proud of, and bringing on new work and growing 20+% a year. And it's been quite the turnaround. So it's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to the feeling of like that day. It's almost like we've all seen. I've been watching the show The Bear. Have you guys seen The Bear?
About the chef.
Yeah, about the chef. And there's been a few episodes in different seasons where like the shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? And like all at once, and all the things fail. And that day you just described, like I've seen that in the kitchen in the show The Bear. It's just like so. And then how they battle back, and how it affects all the relationships internally. Can you take us into that, like as if we're watching the Phoenix Heat Treat TV show? Like what was everybody feeling like when all of that happened in that same season?
Yeah. So when you lose NADCAP the first time, there's this just tremendous, like, some people felt blindsided, obviously, because everyone's like, we've been doing good parts. We were on merit before. Like we had been, and merit's there's like different tiers and levels. You can be every year, every 18 months, every 2 years. And so merit is kind of the middle, kind of 18 months or 18th month merit. So everyone was feeling good. So that was a huge kind of surprise. You'd be like, oh my gosh, and you feel down because you just see this work get evaporating on the shop floor. Like, and then obviously with that, you have to make really challenging staffing decisions, and that is not fun. I remember, again, I was 26, and there was no way we could maintain the labor that we had to do, and so we had to furlough some people, and that was my first time sitting there looking across these people at half their age at that point, and be like, hey, I wish we gotta make some changes, and so I think there was a huge emotional piece because you have people leaving, you have work stopping, The workforce looks different. My background, I played a lot of sports growing up. I played collegiately in lacrosse collegiately on the East Coast. And so I'm like, at that point, I was like a rah guy. So I'm like doing these hands-on meetings, like, we're going to fight it. We're going to, trying to get people pumped up, and you do everything you can to kind of right the ship. And then they kind of came to this. So that's kind of one evolution of that. And then it kind of transitions into this, like, we're going to burn the boats and we're just going full steam ahead of like, we have no choice, but we are going forward and we are going to be okay. And it's going to look different. That what got us here and where we're going may look different, but we are burning the boats and it's full steam ahead. And so that's a whole different mindset and a whole different psychology. And, we had some people that didn't want to go on that ride with us. And, and we...
That was going to be my next question. Like, did you have to make changes to people who weren't subscribing to this new
I think some
era?
people didn't want to go through it, and the economic uncertainty, I think, was a lot for people, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this company is lost. You have COVID happening, huge uncertainty. Then you have this quality stuff, huge uncertainty. And so just all that, some people were like, this is not really where I would prefer to be spending time. And, we wished them well, and there's not a whole lot you can do. So you try to build around the people that feel aligned and want to be part of the journey and be part of that building. And there's lots of people that did stick with us. And now we look back and this core group of maybe 20 people or 30 people that went through the whole transition, and we reminisce, and it's like, man, what we did is an unbelievable feat. And it's pretty cool. And so, yeah, there was some turnover for sure, as to be expected. But yeah, so we kind of climbed our way out.
So you have 30 of the originals that are still part of the team. How many total employees are you at right now?
Yeah, we're at 80 people now. I think we shrunk down to like 50 at one point, but we're still running 3 shifts. So that's really lean. So you didn't see a lot of people, on any given shift, it was pretty sparse. So yeah, we built up quite a bit, which has been good and feels healthy now. And I think the culture plays a huge piece into that. And we almost needed that reset to kind of, it seems cliche, we're Phoenix heat treating the Phoenix coming out of the fire, but it is, I think it's appropriate because we needed to, and as much as I look back and I was like, gosh, losing NADCAP that second time was brutal. It really was the galvanizing moment for us to say, we have to, if we want to be in business for another 60 years, we got to evolve and we got to think a little differently, and things are going to be okay. We can still take care of our people as a family run business. We try to take care of our people. That's not going to change. Okay. That's good. But the way in which we do our work has got to evolve. And so that was kind of, we needed that almost in retrospect to force the cultural revolution that we've gone through, and the system thinking and reliance on technology and all that good stuff. So
how much of your work at the time was NADCAP? Obviously, if you're still keeping 3 shifts and 50 people busy, you must have had a fair bit of your work that wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not like 100% of your work disappeared.
Right. And it's, the NADCAP world is interesting. And I could spend an hour talking about NADCAP. But, the prime contractors have a clause in most of their quality systems that they want you to be NADCAP approved. But in the event that you're not NADCAP, they can provide a waiver or a special, provision. And when we're doing parts across the country, that's a significant supply chain interruption that people are going to have to resource. And so some primes, there's a lot here in Phoenix, they came in, they reviewed it, they're heat treat experts. I sat down with them and we explained kind of what was happening and what we had been doing to remedy the situation. And they said, okay, we're going to give you a waiver. And on their end, they maybe did some extra hardness testing or some extra, when they needed charts or something like that to validate that things were done. So it wasn't like everything evaporated overnight. There was one prime that I think was probably close to $1 million in revenue through their supply chain, right? So like not directly. Yeah. That went away and they haven't come back. And that's a whole nother story in itself. But so I think, we do there's a lot of tool and die, a lot of firearms here in the Valley. And we do parts for like lawnmower blades for golf courses. So there was enough to keep us busy, but it definitely felt a significant drop from where we were.
Yeah.
And then we had to balance the existing aerospace customers that were giving us waivers and said, hey, we need you as a supplier. So how do we work together? And that was something I'll never forget, is those guys who came in and we kind of figured it out together. So
awesome.
Yeah, walk us through that a little bit. Like how did that work? That figuring it out together piece.
Yeah, so I think, because we knew that we felt comfortable we were putting out good parts. The more critical the part is, the more extensive back end testing there is, right? So a tool and die part, we're probably gonna do hardness and we're gonna get out, and that's the quality characteristics that are important. When you're doing flight safety hardware, flight critical hardware, and APUs and defense parts, there's gonna be tinsel testing and stress rupture and, mag particle and all these things downstream that are also going to be that safety net to check to make sure that things are good. So one of the things that we had to do was provide, charts to make sure that when we said it was in the furnace, that was applicable. We had to send them to those calibration records I mentioned to show that it was a approved or good qualifying furnace, and then provide the data chart to validate that, it made the times and temperatures. I don't think many of the primes, obviously they realized we weren't doing it intentionally and it was not something that we wanted to go through. And so once they sat down with us and really it was just one after another and say, hey, what do we need to do? What are your critical part numbers? How does this work? And we just, manufacturing folks are resilient, right? And that's one of the things I love about this industry is people, we have a mission that's so much bigger than each of our shops. It's getting satellites up. It's, transporting people commercially. It's, trains, making sure the train infrastructure is good, whatever it might be. And so,
like you brought up COVID, I remember how everyone was rallying around each other and people were shifting what they were making in their shops to combat COVID. And anytime there's wartime, everything changes and all the metalworking nation kind of galvanizes around each other. Yeah.
So the big prime contractors helped, and we've been in business for 60 years. A lot of our customers have really stuck with us if they could, right? If we had a waiver for a prime, they were sending it to us because they didn't want to send it to California or somewhere else, but they also they want to see us kind of get back on our feet. So really thankful for our customer base that has stuck with us for this long. And, being diversified in semiconductor also helped because that was kind of going crazy at that time. So we were able to find balance, and we're very fortunate and blessed in that way. So it was good.
Manufacturing isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's built on materials, machines, and the methods behind them. In What's Your Method, we talk with the leaders at Methods Machine Tools about how they're helping manufacturers in aerospace, mold making, and machining turn complexity into opportunity.
So Darren, welcome to the show. The guys and I were just talking about how 30 taper machines can be serious chip monsters. And I was telling them that we had a robo drill at ProCNC that just was almost miraculous at making chips. And not only could it actually cut really hard, but the fact that it was in the cut so often, because the tool changes were just like blink of an eye, and the acceleration of the spindles up and down were just incredible compared to our other machines. So welcome, and tell us a little bit more about why 30 taper machines are just so amazing.
Paul, thanks for having me. And so I agree with you. I think this whole 30 taper market, they're kind of taken for granted. Yeah, often they're thought of as toys or, like you said, lightweight drill and tap machine. They're just not taken seriously. I don't believe to the full extent. But I tell you, there's a lot of OEMs that are really opening their eyes to the capabilities of these machines. Like you're saying, the speed is just incredible, right? I mean, the ack and deck of everything, the axes, the spindle acceleration. We have a 24,000 RPM option that goes from 0 to 24,000 RPMs in less than a second, right? I mean,
that's the machine we had that spindle RPM.
Right.
So it was wild to watch it.
Right. You remember the days of listening to the 40 taper machines wind up to 15? Like, you read the
Took
paper.
Several seconds.
Eat your breakfast, and then it's up to speed. Then Z comes down. Then it starts machining at 20 inches a minute. Yeah. Those days are over. So, no, they're just very, very fast, very efficient machines. And that's what I try to stress to people today is, right, floor space is a premium, right? Extremely expensive. So anytime you can condense, your floor space, maximize, I call it spindle density, right? The more spindles we can get on the floor, obviously the more profitable you're going to be. But when we can put a machine, in place of another machine and the robo drill, say 20 to 40% more, efficient than what was there, and maybe we get two in that same footprint. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's just so much more profitable, right? And the reliability is second to none. So.
Sure. I want to ask a question. The category, is sometimes called like drill tap machines, right? And I think that probably maybe was originally kind of how they were conceived of. But my belief is that over the years, the engineering has gotten so good and they've gotten so much more rigid, they can actually like do some serious chip removal. Do you think like there's been an actual development to where the earliest ones years and years ago weren't quite as good at hogging chips, and the newer ones today can be more capable?
100%. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like I was saying, I've been with Methods a long time, and they've been building robo drills since 1972. And in 1972, it was a drill tap machine. That's what it was. The progression has been incredible. The drawbar itself, the progression in the drawbar alone has made insane improvements, right? We used to have Belleville washers. A lot of machines on the market still have Belleville washers. We've got a ground coil spring that is what that eliminates is right grease getting pulled out of the Belleville washers at high RPM. And then the fretting, right, with no lubrication, and they corrode, they work hard together, and you lose drawbar tension over time, which is rigidity, right? So then you lose tool life, surface finish, all that stuff. So yeah, with that ground coil spring drawbar, if we increase the tension, it doesn't go away until it just breaks for good. So that was a big improvement. Quite honestly, when I started, 29 years ago with Methods, the ball screws were not captured. So the end of the ball screw away from the motor was not captured. It was floating out there. So yeah, you really only milled in one direction back then. It was a great drill tap machine, and you could climb mill, and that was about it. You didn't really want a conventional mill. But nowadays, again, drawbars are wonderful. The ball screws are captured, tensioned, so they're a true mill machine now.
Yeah.
There's limitations, no doubt, but they're just way more capable than people realize, so.
Well, before we let you go, and this has been fascinating, and I'm sure people are learning a ton, how would you characterize the shift to some of the more high-speed machining techniques where there's more axial, but at much higher speeds? It's got to play right into the strengths of these types of machines.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's exactly where these machines live, right? With our high RPM rates, the high ACK and deck, of the axis acceleration, up to 2.2 G acceleration and 2,300 inches per minute. You're right. We get to locations very fast, and then, we can machine at high feed rates, and, it's not uncommon in, aluminum and some materials similar to that, you'll see some feed rates up in the, 400 inch per minute range, obviously depending on the part material, but, some of that translates into steel too, like you're saying. So titanium.
Absolutely.
Machining titanium like it's aluminum today. It's crazy.
Well, some of those programming techniques and all the cutters with new coatings combined with what these 30 taper machines can do, it's just a recipe for serious productivity.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, right? The toolings come along with the machine tools, right? Those coatings they've got nowadays really are amazing. And you can do some crazy stuff. And I mean, ceramics, right? I mean, it's just, the tooling possibilities are incredible. So,
well, Darren, if people want to learn more about how they can incorporate some of this into their shop, how would you suggest they reach you?
Oh man, go to our Methods homepage, click on Robo Drill, right? Ask for information, that they can email me, dwall@methodsmachine.com, and any of that would be great. So,
okay. Well, Darren, thanks for equipping and inspiring the Metalworking Nation today. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. I hope you have a great day, sir.
You as well.
Hey, Mike, how often does an outside service provider keep you up at night?
Yeah, every day. I mean, the team's looking for updates on that. Every day we have a job that we need to know on.
How often is it heat treating?
I mean, large majority.
Imagine if you could go log into your supplier's website, visit a client portal, and see exactly the status of your job.
Well, that would be very helpful because, typically when we're looking, it's because our customer's looking. And I don't like having to say, we'll call you back. I like to be able to just look and tell them. And when it's not in my shop, I can't do that right now.
I think honesty and transparency is something that most manufacturing leaders want to deliver to their customers. But what I love about Phoenix Heat Treat is they literally created this client portal. It's the most transparent, the most honest you can be. It says exactly where the job is, and it makes it super easy for guys like you to tell their customers what to expect.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I wish all of our outside processors had that. Nick, how do we get a hold of them?
So you go to phoenix-heat-treating.com. That's phoenix-heat-treating.com. They're serving customers all over the country.
I'd love to dig into sort of the transformation into the multiple shifts, improving your culture. Obviously, you and I have talked about your ERP system, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Because that really is, I don't, it's pretty uncommon to have that level of transparency and like live status and download your own certs or whatever. It's just next level service. But maybe just walk us through all that, how you got the team on board, what you had to do to get buy-in. That change management piece is so big for any kind of company when you're doing massive changes.
I'd love to.
Is it just your the rah-rah from the lacrosse days, or was there more to it than just that?
No, I think there's more to it. I mean, I was fortunate to, there's a lot of aerospace folks here, and so I have some pretty good mentorship folks that I can pick their brains. And there's a gentleman out here that, grew a repair and overhaul company and had a really nice exit to Textron. And so he's been kind of a really good friend and mentor and someone I still connect with. And so, I mean, really the culture was a big piece, right? Everyone talks about culture. My belief is it's not cookies and pizza parties. It's how you show up to work every day. Do you want to go to work on Monday or do you dread it? And I think a lot of that comes from the transparency. And so we kind of backed into it and we realized, okay, we need to, a lot of companies want to put things on these bulletin boards, these posters, their core values, their mission, their vision, but it's not something that you can easily remember and it doesn't just stick with you, right? And if it doesn't just stick with you and you can't put a behavior behind it, then it's really just expensive wallpaper because probably you had your executives put it together, maybe somebody else. So now you got everyone's time and it just lives on the wall and collects dust.
I love that. Expensive wallpaper.
Expensive wallpaper.
So true. Yeah,
that's good.
And so we really started with the vision and the core values. And so, we've always been a service business. That is what heat treating is. We don't have any long-term agreements. Our success comes from our customer success. So our vision is to be the most customer-centric heat treater in the country. It's a lofty goal, but if we're continually chasing that and we're thinking about that in all our daily interactions, we're going to be okay in the long run, right? So galvanizing around that and making sure people understood that, we need to be responsive on emails. We need to be responsive on parts. We cannot, if there's a problem, we need to be proactive. That's something we always face, right? No one wants to deliver bad news. But it's that constant evolution of changing, always chasing that. And then from the core values piece, every company has a culture. Sometimes it's not good, obviously, and that's a whole different segment to talk about. And sometimes it's good, but they don't define it. And I've seen that. It's interesting, like, as a quick side at the machine shop, they have a very clear culture, but no one could tell you what the core values were. And it wasn't something that people could galvanize around. And so and I think that's common, right? And that was how it was common at Phoenix. And so what we did is we put a survey out and we told people we need, 95%. And the survey was, what behaviors do you most appreciate from your coworker on their best day? Because then you're getting tangible, actionable things that people do, right? And that's showing up to work on time, being positive, and, helping when it's not necessary or outside of your scope and whatever. We got this whole long list of behaviors, tangible activities that happen on the floor day to day. And then we aggregated that down to 4, core values. And, it's being a good team player, being positive, having attention to detail, and having a strong work ethic. Those are things that they're easy to remember. They're easy to see and have behaviors that are tied directly to them. It's sometimes people put integrity, but then it's, well, how do you exemplify integrity on a daily basis? That is for each company to decide. So we stuck with those 4. And it was great. And we then started beating this drum of we hire, we fire, and we promote based on our culture. And so then it just became, people who've been here for a long time have heard that, and they're like, oh, here we go again. Charlie's on the kick. But now they see it. They see that it's the secret sauce. And it takes a couple hard discussions, but my approach has always been, we're going to coach somebody if they're off the track, get them back on track. And then it's up to them at that point, and you do a couple coaching sessions and it's very clear. And then it doesn't become that expensive wallpaper. Then it is just what you do. It's people here just take care of each other. They are just everything I have seen from an accountability standpoint, not loading parts correctly. That's an attention to detail thing. Everything seems to fall back to those 4 core values. And so when we do coaching, yes, we're coaching on the technical piece that was missed, but we're highlighting the value that was, missed as much or even more than you had space on or something. And that has been enormous.
So good, man. Because I think when we started to see the same thing in our business, it was when other people were using those words in just conversation.
Yeah. And then,
they would be like, that's a mutual respect thing, or that's a continuous learning thing, or whatever, you start to hear them actually say the words and how they communicate about whatever it is we're trying to achieve. And it's like, all right, now it's not expensive wallpaper. People are using it,
So I think that's, one thing. So establishing that, to your question, Paul, was that was step number 1, establish the rules of the game so everyone knows and it's super clear. And then we took it a step further. And, when we post a job on Indeed, we say, before they even get into what the responsibilities are, we say, this is the culture piece. You got to fit this. This is our vision. If you like that, keep reading. Then here's what the job description is or what the activities are. So one thing I've noticed is there's just, in terms of culture, sometimes we just, as leaders, expect it to happen because we're really good, but you got to be intentionally driving that in your system at every element from the beginning. So from the moment we have post an Indeed article, our culture is front and center. It's the number 1 thing. Onboarding, when we make an offer letter, I wrote a 1-page letter to the candidate saying, this is what it looks like. This is what it exemplifies to mean to be an A player here at Phoenix Seed Treat. If you like it, then go to the second page, because that's where you're going to see the benefits and the salary and the hours and all that stuff. And then you got to sign it. So that's the next piece. Like then you start showing up for onboarding. We're going to talk about it again. And so it just becomes this intentional part of the workflow that by the time you've been here for a week, you've already seen it 4, 5, 6, 7 times about what it takes to be a strong, teammate, from the leadership to our frontline technicians. Everyone's going to have heard we hire, fire, promote based on the culture, and they see it. And that goes a long way. And then that obviously carries all the way through to reviews and so on and so forth. So, so that's kind of some of the stuff we did.
That's awesome. It's like building the flywheel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it came from the floor, it wasn't just corporate or managers or the owner saying, these are the core values, you're going to go the way that I want to go. It's like, look, I tell the new guys that are started here that were not around, I did not come up with these. The people that you work with developed these. These are the things that the people that you're going to walk and interact with find important. So now they had buy-in, and I think it was a really easy way to make buy-in. So now when you see the culture posters with the mission, the vision, and the core values, it's something that is a coaching tool, not just a piece of wallpaper that, you kind of stop looking at. And that's kind of, bled into profit sharing and, the whole nine. It just really drives the decisions that we make are driving off of that cultural piece. And we've seem to have some pretty good success because of that.
That's awesome. There's a takeaway that so a lot of what you said is just validating, certain things that we're trying to do in our family business. But I love page 1 and page 2 when you're recruiting, and don't even go to page 2 if you don't like page 1. If that doesn't seem like you, doesn't seem like the way you want to be, just get out of here. So,
and that's
'cause I
okay,
think
right?
that's
Like
so
sometimes it's not going to be the right fit for people who, they may look at that and go, that is too much. I'm sure people have done that. And then they're like, I don't want to be in this environment. Cool. I wish you all the best. And that's okay. It's just not a good fit. And that's
I think it
fine.
might go the other way too, where like they're so into page 1 that they're like, yeah, I don't,
they're chomping at the
good
bit.
with
They're like,
whatever's
"Get
on
me in."
page 2.
Yeah, they're like, I'm
exactly.
ready. I want to be with. I think A players attract A players, and so
Exactly.
if you can keep your A players happy, you just that flywheel. To Paul's point, and that's something I stress to the guys on the floor all the time is like, we have the momentum. Don't let the little things, the gossip about this guy. Why is this guy not here? X, Y, Z. That is not leading to a positive outcome. That's not being a team. That slows down the flywheel. Just keep the momentum because the momentum is contagious. And that leads itself into what we've done with the compensation piece. We decided we're family business. We still want to carry that. It's important. So we decided that all our employees we're super transparent. Transparency is, I think, a key component to how we've made so much of this change management happen so quickly, explaining what we're doing, why we're doing it. So our profit sharing program, super transparent. There's 4 payouts each quarter and it's a percentage of net income. So, or net profit. Yeah. So essentially, as the company does well, and that gets, and I like net income because if somebody isn't lifting parts properly, not asking for help and has to file a workman's comp because they hurt their back. Well, guess what? That's going to impact everybody now. So just take the time and ask somebody. If somebody straps something out, that may not see that on the top line, but it flows all the way to the bottom line. If you're not taking care of yourself on the forklifts, or you have an OSHA inspection or whatever it might be, those things are not always categorized on the gross profit side, but you do see it for sure on the net. And so we wanted to make our employees feel like they had a vested stake in the business, and that as the business grew and was successful, our employees felt the same way. And so the way we do the math is essentially there's a percentage of net that we take from each quarter. Each quarter, you get a piece that quarter and then another piece later on at the end of the year. So you get a little bit now, and there's a pool at the end. And there's no delay in when you're eligible. So on day 1, if you started at the end of we're coming up on the end of a month, if you start at the end of a quarter, if you're hired and started, you're eligible for that entire month's or that entire quarter's profit. Because we wanted people to feel like day 1, I'm contributing. And now you have this flywheel of people holding each other accountable. Hey, we're all busting our butt because we don't need to hire an extra material handler. We're going to cover it, and we're not going to take that extra long smoke break. And we're all going to be in this thing because that's one less person that gets distributed on the profit sharing. And so if someone leaves, then that pool at the end is bigger for whoever remained from Q1. And so it has worked out really well. And people really like it because they get a little now and then a bigger payout at the end of the year. It's been good.
Yeah, it creates that extreme ownership where even those that aren't owners of the business operate like owners of the business. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not profitable as the owner of the business, it's less on your plate at home. So, I love that.
And at the end of the day, everyone wants to do what's best for them and their family. I think we have to understand that. And as good business owners and operators, we have to come into our operations with that mindset because we're all doing that. And so pay transparency, here's the formula for how you're going to get paid more. It's XYZ. It's based on performance. It's not just based on tenure. You want to go make extra percent. This is how you go do it. You go learn new skills. You get validated that you can do stuff. Now you have less headcount. And so it just becomes this system, and the transparency from that side of things has been really, really good. And not being afraid to have tough conversations and say, hey, this is what this role pays. And if you are interested if you're one of those guys that's chomping at the bit, that's like, I'm all in on that page 1 culture, then let's figure out how to keep feeding them, right? Maybe they move from the floor into lab, and then from lab into quality engineer. And now their runway just for comp just got, extended by a significant margin, and you got A players in technical roles. And so we try to do that as much as we can.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Charlie, since I'm steering a whole new direction here. So with the machine shop you've now purchased, I don't know what the culture was like or how well they were doing these things that you just described, but maybe talk about your plans to implement all that stuff there and frame it in a way like, because I'm sure there's many listeners who are like, oh man, we need to do all those things. Like,
Sure.
we're not being as good in these areas as I really want to be. So if someone, is like, all right, I want to get inspired to just like really push forward and do these kind of things that Charlie's doing.
Yeah.
Describe it how you're about to do that in the new machine shop.
Yeah, happy to kind of share. So we took over. We've been there for about a month now, and I move very quickly. That's typically how I had this great adage, and I'll kind of tie it all together here in a minute. I was listening to a talk that Jeff Bezos gave, and he's like, there's two-way door decisions and there's one-way door decisions. Two-way door decisions, you go in the room, you don't like it, you just turn around, you walk out, you make another pivot. The one-way door decisions, are a lot harder to go back from. You can't just send back the CNC machine that you just paid a whole bunch of money for because something changed. You want to slow down on those one-way door expansion, those big things. But there's a lot of two-way door decisions that you can just try it, get it going, see if something happens and if it gets the outcome you want, and then pivot, go out the door. So I say that because when we took over Mesa Custom Machining, first week, we sat down with every single person individually and we just started listening. What's going well, what's not. And we had them fill out that exact same survey,
Nice.
The behaviors. And we asked them, what does winning look like in your role? Because I think a lot of times we have these job descriptions that are they feel like lawyers wrote them. There's this huge long list of things. But at the end of the day, everyone just wants to know what do I need to do to win? And you want to attract winners. So it's like, what are the 4 things that I need to know so that everyone's on the same page? So our playbook, and I'm happy to share it, is basically just listen first, do this culture survey. It's very low hanging fruit. It's all anonymous. You don't need to know what someone thinks. You care about the outcome that you're getting, and then you develop these core values. It's funny. We hired a guy, we worked with the owner to hire a guy, or the seller, I guess, a machinist. And I don't want to speak poorly about him. He's a great machinist, very technically sound, but he was not a great culture fit. And within a week, the company had just kind of rejected him. And they couldn't just pinpoint why, like we could at Phoenix, because we can say, here's our values that we find really important. So they had a culture at the machine shop, but it wasn't something that was defined that everyone could point to. So we had to make a tough decision and we parted ways with this individual, but it was clear that they had a culture, and that taught me every company has culture. We just needed to define it. So once we did that, we're 3-4 weeks in, we had the culture, said, this is what you guys say is important. So we're just going to start hiring, firing, promoting based on this. This is how it goes. So then after that, I think it goes to just being super transparent. We had an all hands meeting this week, and I said, this is the direction. We want to honor the stuff that got us here. We're going to put in some new systems, and this is why we're going in this direction. And I think everyone's scared of the change, right? Everyone is worried that change is going to be hard, and it's an investment always from the business. So I like to tie some compensation to it in some way, because I see, again, we are trying to do what's best for ourselves and our family. And if someone showed up to me right now and said, Charlie, I'm going to give you a brand new truck, you just got to change this thing, I'd be like, cool, what do you need me to do? No big deal, right? You tie, and the reward or outcome has to be in close proximity, not 5 years down the road we'll have this, but like something that's manageable. So we basically said, we're going to go AS9100. This is what the culture is. We're going to put a new ERP system in. And when that happens, and we think that can happen in X amount of weeks, relatively short, we're going to unlock profit sharing. So then people go, okay, there's that financial piece that I'm going to be more open-minded to, instead of it being this horrible thing that I'm going to fight every step of the way. So I think if you can find those little nuggets and ways to incentivize the behavior that you want, obviously you can't do that all the time. You need to try to will it and get people that want to improve and see the bigger picture. But if you can find little ways to incentivize where it matters to people, I've found great success with that. So start with the culture survey, make it less scary, and then just talk to your people, get their buy-in. I'm not a machinist. I'm not going to pretend to be a machinist. I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can. So I'm going to go out there and brainstorm ideas with people all the time and ask them, well, what do you think about that? Should we go to 410s? Would that make sense? That builds a lot of trust when you do that. And then from there, you just slowly pick away at it. And, but defining the culture is the key piece, because you can't hold anybody to a standard that's not clearly defined. If no one knows and can't define that vision or mission, makes it really hard to say you're not winning. So
that's so good.
Mic drop. That was awesome, Charlie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Charlie, like this question's been rattling through my head for like this whole episode. Was your father, your grandfather, any of your predecessors, were they athletes as well? Like on teams like you were?
Yeah, I mean, I think like recreationally, they would say they were on teams. No
but
one,
not like playing in college.
No one, was playing in college at that level. So,
because as you're talking, you're like, oh, I wasn't a metallurgist engineer, and I'm not a machinist or whatever. The words you're using throughout this entire episode are about teams and what it takes to win, and standards and culture, and it's like the stuff that when a coach gets hired and they have to institute a new culture for whatever it is, the NFL team that they just took over, whatever it is. And I think that might be like the superpower of this generation of Phoenix Heat Treat is your ability to galvanize teams and build a culture and set a standard. And you could apply that to any business. But just as you're talking, it's so similar to like me and my brothers. We all played sports. We're all using the same words. It's, you know how you keep score. You know what it takes to win. You win and lose as a team.
Yeah.
Even like the gamification piece of, trying to make sure that, there's rewards for the performance and even what you said about, well, it's not just based on tenure, it's based on performance. So like, you don't have a bunch of people who've been there forever, stuck in their old ways. And why are they all like the highest paid people in the company just because they put in the most time? You look at sports teams, it doesn't work that way. It really is based on performance. And so, I don't know, that's kind of my main takeaway. I just wanted your thoughts on that. Like, do you think there's something to your athletic history that really helps you as a leader?
I'm sure that has certainly helped. I've been on teams for a long time at varying levels, and you have no choice but to win or lose. Look, when you at the end of a lacrosse game, if you won or you lost. There's no tie. It is black and white. And so one of the things we put in at the heat treat, we're putting at the machine shop is like a true operating system. We use execute to win ETW methodology, similar to EOS, but it's like a very clear set of outcomes, objectives. And at the end of the day, everyone knows are we winning or we losing. And it's this mind methodology. So most important number and drivers. What's driving that behavior that you want, right? I think fundamentally people of any generation want to do a good job. Maybe that's an optimist in me, but sometimes they don't have the tools or they don't know what that wins and what that looks like. And I use the analogy here is like, and I go back to sports, but like if the owner of the team thinks winning is a Super Bowl and the coach thinks winning is,
the playoffs,
make the playoffs, and the quarterback's like, I threw 3 touchdowns today. That's winning for me. There is a total misalignment. And now everyone's frustrated, but they all think they're winning. So setting a clear expectation of what winning looks like. And I think, maybe winning using that language is important to me because of my sports background, but I think it's relatable because people enjoy, if it doesn't matter if it's, racing or, football, there's a winner and there's a loser and everyone wants to be on the winning side. Chess, it doesn't matter. Everyone wants to win. So I want to attract people like that. So I use language and I'm very intentional in that way. And it's just kind of who I am. So I think, to your point, there is definitely a piece of that you're, it's true.
Yeah, I could sense it.
Hey, it's Paul from MakingChips. If you've been burned by recruiters who don't understand manufacturing, you are not alone. That's exactly why we created Hire MFG Leaders. We're not just recruiters, we're current and former shop owners, and we know what it takes to lead in this industry. Whether you're hiring your next operations leader, sales manager, or production supervisor, we'll help you find someone who actually fits. Learn more at makingchips.com/hire.
And you mentioned earlier that you have a playbook, another athletic-oriented term, right? And you're like, and I'm happy to share it because I think the whole point of this episode is culture, and it all starts with culture. And everything you talked about after that, it really doesn't work unless you've got a culture and standard to uphold. So do you have like something that you're willing to share with us? And maybe we put elements of it in the show notes for the listeners? Or
certainly can. I haven't, formalized and written it down like a book. I think a lot of the playbook, air quotes that I mentioned just now are kind of those steps of having an all hands meeting. I'm going to run both companies with an open book management. There's a great book called The Great Game of Business.
Yeah,
And-
that's been
and,
mentioned on, I don't
yeah,
know, 10
tons
episodes.
of times,
already.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's a very scary thing. I know it's scary for us to make that leap of faith and go, oh my gosh, like our frontline employees are going to, see what our net profit is and XYZ. And as long as you're stewarding it and doing it, the success well and sharing it, I think it becomes a really powerful tool. And so those are the types of things I say when I say playbook. It's establish the culture, do the survey so everyone can easily understand and define it, make it more than expensive wallpaper, hire, fire, promote, the things I've talked about today, the profit.
It's not an
sharing.
actual written book.
No, maybe one of these days I'll write a book. Who knows? We'll see. But
modern playbooks, they're all like little tablets. So you could just send tablets out to every one of our listeners too, like a Microsoft Surface or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm a listener. Can I have a tablet?
Yeah. Everyone's like, why are the downloads so high on this episode? That's so good. Hey, well, thank you so much, man, for sharing this. It's like some episodes you do, it feels so good. Some of them really challenge you, and there was elements of this that challenged me. And then some of them really validate like what you're doing in your business and make you feel like, all right, good. Like it's working for them too, and we're on the right track. So there was a little bit of both of that, Charlie. Really appreciate it.
Well, for sure, we equipped and inspired today. I definitely was inspired by some of what you're doing. And it's so applicable to any business, right?
Right.
Started in the heat treating business. Now you're doing it in the machine shop. That's what our core listener base is. And the way you described it is, as it's pretty clear, like here are some foundational steps that you need to go through first. If you reverse it, it's not going to work. Right. You got to build that culture first, get that buy-in. And I love the fact that you did it from a survey, because it's unrefutable. It's like, this is what the team wants. This is what they care about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it gets everyone.
It's not a top down, thing being imposed.
You will love lacrosse, Gary.
I tell people I'm there to work for them.
Why is it always Gary?
I don't know. It's like my machine shop
on
guy.
Gary's.
That's right. No, I appreciate that, guys. It's been fun. It's been fun to be working with you.
Nobody knows the rules.
All right.
It's been I appreciate you guys having me. It's been fun to kind of share our story, and if people want to talk more about it, they certainly follow me on LinkedIn. I tend to post a lot about what we're doing and some of the stuff. So happy to kind of be a resource any way I can. And we're all in this crazy manufacturing game together. So anything we can do to raise all, what is that saying? All high tides lift all boats. Something like that.
One.
So
I
appreciate the time, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, how do people find you, Charlie? It's the URL to your website, phoenix-heat-treating.com. Did I get it?
That's right.
Let's
then LinkedIn, I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect on more of a personal note that way, and we're posting about all the different businesses, and we've got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline, I think, here to kind of continue to grow and foster Arizona manufacturing. And so, follow along and join the journey. It'll be fun.
Awesome. Sounds great, man.
So if you're not building a great team that's aligned with their values and what matters, you're not going to be making chips or heat treating. And if you're not making chips
or heat treating,
you're not making money. Bam.